This is your moment. This is your time. Embrace every milestone. No looking behind. What's your vantage point?
Hello, everybody. We are so excited to be with you today because our topic is hot. I mean, it's hot. Get ready, buckle your seatbelts, get ready for the ride. It's your girl, Lori from Vantage Point. I'm here with my sisters,
Serge Marie, Alexa Hawkins,
Natalie.
And we are the ladies of Vantage Point. So, but now you're wondering, what they gonna talk about today? Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
Let's talk about...
You better do it. Yes, honey. Today we are talking about something that everybody knows something about, because you wouldn't be here if somebody that you know didn't know something about something. You know what I mean? But what's this whole sex thing about anyway? What's the purpose?
you just said the perfect thing. We all got here the same way.
Well,
And if your eyes are open at all, then you have thought about, you've experienced sex.
yes.
So we thought one of the best ways to do this show was just to bring it forward. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
You know, back when you start thinking about the purpose of sex, biblically, you know, you're thinking about procreation, you're thinking about that kind of thing. But the important thing is that God made it fun.
Yes.
I think that's really important
Praise
for people
the Lord.
to think about. And God did that. God made it fun.
Because he loves us.
Because he loves us so much. You know, we did the safari once, and we actually saw, it was mating season for lions. And we saw these lions mating.
Oh.
And you would think, king of the jungle, I mean, you would think he's majestic and all this. You have no idea. We're talking about boom, boom, boom.
What, the line was a quickie?
Boom, boom, boom.
What?
Plus, they do it all day long. It's like they have a purpose. They're getting something done.
But do you think the lioness enjoy it?
No. How do you know? From what I saw,
She said, how you
from
know?
what I saw, she was like, let's get this over. 15 minutes later, let's get this over. Which, the joy of it is that that's not the same for us. God has created in such a way where we can enjoy sex.
I mean, I know God and everything about it, but I'm back with these lions, right? So wait, so what they like, is it a doggy style lion style? Is it,
It's exactly what you would expect.
they hitting it from the back, or
they're both in heat. They're both in heat, right? The female lion kind of does a signal. He comes over, services
That's
her
a
from
signal. What do you
behind.
mean a signal?
You can just tell it's kind of like times.
I mean, can you like put a time frame on
Okay,
it?
no, seriously. It was not that dramatic. That's the point. Wow. It was not that dramatic. It was so mechanical. And that's the point.
Oh,
It's
no,
kinda
God
like,
ain't mean
they're
that.
just making this happen because you know it's time to procreate. But for us, everything you said and more. We can do more. And the funny thing about it is that we don't talk about it. No one talks about it as openly and as frankly
You're right.
as we should. Don't you think?
Why do you think that is, though? Okay, as we're all Christians here, right? So
Right.
I'm going to zone in on my Christian friends. Now, do you believe that the church should talk about sex more? Because it seems that the church is very silent when it comes, well, some churches, let me say that. Some churches are very silent when it comes to discussing sex. Now, of course, we know that sex was created for the covenant of marriage.
Right.
Is biblical.
Absolutely.
That is so.
Yes.
But what about those who are struggling? Sexual addictions, per se. Same-sex attractions. Pornography. That's a huge one. And a lot of times when we think of pornography, you instantly think of males being addicted to that. It's male and female.
Females too. There's females too.
But it seems as though that the church, some churches, because I know the church that I attend, we do talk about it.
That's right.
Sometimes I wish we talk about it more because I have questions.
Right.
Okay.
But I think it's the connotation that people put on sex. Sex gets a negative connotation. So anytime that even us talking about it today, there's somebody saying like, oh, clutch my pearls. I can't believe that. Yes, we talking about sex, and if you ain't talking about it, that means you need to listen in, because somebody ain't happy in your house.
It's a gift, right? It's a gift that God designed for us to enjoy. But your question was why we don't talk about it in church.
Right.
And so, I thought about that. Well, perhaps maybe leaders of some churches may be struggling with their own sexual immorality. You ever think about that? So sometimes it's easy to address or I don't want to say convict or preach and teach about a sin that you're not struggling with.
The church on the whole, and that's including the Catholic Church and
Right.
everything that's going on with the Catholic Church, the church on the whole has a bad rap when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was listening to one woman who was caught in sex trafficking, and she came out of it, and her testimony was she thought that it was normal all her life because when she was young, her pastor had abused her, and then she would see him up there in the pulpit. So for her, it's kind of like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be able to preach from the pulpit all this word about God and then do what you do to me later on in the afternoon. So for her, it's all mingled together. So is that pastor going to talk about pornography? Is that pastor going to preach against it? Silence.
Not only that, I think also, not to come at ministers, but sometimes you just want to pacify the congregation and talk about what is easy to talk about. You know, I have a friend who right now her whole thing is hashtag unapologetically unashamed.
Yes.
And I am not ashamed of the fact that I am a sexual being. I enjoy my husband very, very much. And I'm okay with that. And I think, you know what, people would be happier in the world. They just had better sex.
I agree. Absolutely. You almost can tell. I think she might need some.
Yo, sometimes you're like, yo, she needs some.
to the conditions of your heart. But anyway, you know, I think also too, I think church leaders are mindful, or maybe should be mindful, of the appropriate time and space. So
That's
perhaps
good.
Absolutely.
That's
maybe,
good.
you know,
That's
a
good.
Sunday service or sermon
That's
is not
good.
the place,
That's
but
good.
at a believers meeting or something, perhaps like a marriage seminar,
Absolutely.
that may
Exactly.
be
Absolutely.
the best time to talk about some real issues.
Exactly.
Yeah. But also, I also sense that people don't really like to talk about sex because they're afraid to be judged.
Right.
Especially in an area of you're struggling, you're a single person,
Right.
and it's like, okay, you know, I had a friend of mine said, you know, well, what happens when you are single but you desire those benefits?
Right.
Per se.
Girl, that's a mess.
Yeah, it is.
Especially if you've been married already.
Right.
So you've been married, you did whatever, you figured it out.
Yeah,
You're no
sex.
longer married, you're a widow even.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I didn't
Yes.
it's not like I even divorced. What I'm supposed to do with all this emotion down here that I've been used to? Search right here at that face. You know what emotion is.
Yes, I do.
I like to figure it out. Shit.
I like here and not up here or up here, just down there.
Yeah.
But you bring up a really good point
Yes.
about singles and singles in the church. And, you know, perhaps maybe churches may not be prepared to address what a single may need in today's
Right.
culture. So, you know,
That's
the
real.
word is true, it's powerful, it's settled, but that's not enough,
Right.
right? So I think so with singles, you know, we have to look at the culture, we have to look at society, we have to look at all those things.
Right.
A woman, you know, back in before Christ, or, you know, from 10 years ago to 20 years ago from last year, it's just different.
Yeah.
Same with men.
Yeah.
So again, just saying this is what singles should and shouldn't do isn't enough.
Especially coming from a married person.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you going home and you getting yours, but you
Yeah.
want to tell me all day what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly. And so in talking to single women, even talking to a single woman this morning, she said, you know, I'm okay with hearing, you know, from a married person, but you got to be relevant. You have to
Right.
know what the struggle is. For me to struggle for someone who's been married for 50 years, 30 years, or
Right.
even 15 years
Right.
is different
Absolutely.
for someone
Yeah.
who's been married
Absolutely.
for 5 years or less. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tough out there.
I don't even know what to tell them. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, other than saying you should get married again,
Yeah.
like what do you do?
If they desire, exactly. What do you do if they don't desire to be married?
Right.
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 But then
That's the key.
that's the key.
Right.
And as I ponder that question, it goes back to relationship.
Yeah.
Your relationship with you and your God.
That's good.
It's not our space, and we're not authorized to judge anyone.
Right.
Now you are afforded to, you know, if you're able to go to a good church, you get that word. You know between right and wrong. Now, if you choose to continue to have sex as a single person, that's between you and your God.
Can't nobody judge you.
Okay, nobody can
Right.
touch you.
Let me
Ain't nobody
put
judging
on
you.
this then, because if you're single and you want sex and you don't want marriage, two things. One, if sex is the benefit of marriage, then that puts you in a hard spot.
Yeah.
And you have to really choose your values. You have to
Right.
kind of come up
Yes.
and be honest with yourself. Are you
Right.
going to go with this direction and go with this is what you said you believe, or not? I know it's hard, and that's the kind of thing that you don't want to hear from a married person who's getting on the bed.
Exactly.
I know it's hard, But that's one. And the other is, what about sex toys?
Right.
Because then it kind of brings into masturbation.
Sure.
And what are you going to do on your own?
She said sex
Well,
toys.
She did say sex toys, sex toys, sex toys, sex toys.
Sex
Let's talk
toys.
about sex toys and masturbation,
I mean,
right?
Let's
These
go.
are real
Let's
issues.
go.
Let's go
These
in.
are real issues, and just to be being real, being transparent, you deal with them in your singleness, and you also deal with it in your marriage, right?
Absolutely.
You know, sex toys, masturbation. Is it okay? Is it not okay?
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, for me, it's an issue of the flesh, right? Not just the flesh, your thought life.
Yeah.
It's really your thought life. So when you're masturbating, what are you thinking about?
Right.
Who are you seeing in your mind?
Exactly.
Wow,
And where
that's
does that
good.
take you? And then even
That's
going
good.
deeper,
That's good.
what your thought life or even your experience in your singleness, you can potentially fantasize about that in your marriage.
Yep.
And that's dangerous, right?
Okay.
I'm not saying I did it right. I'm just saying these things, I believe, transcend into both status, I guess, from your singleness to your married life.
But I will say, while we talking about masturbation, and when we're talking about orgasm and climax and stuff, I just want more women to understand, ladies, you are supposed to be having an orgasm. Don't waste your time playing these little games. He ain't the only one that's supposed to be able to get happy.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
If I'm not happy, we need a do-over. Okay? We need to repeat that ustedes. Let's go.
Think about how people have been taught.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
even when you think about like sex education in school,
Yes.
they tell boys a lot.
That's
and they
true.
tell girls about their menstrual
That's
cycle.
true.
That's right.
They
That's
don't
true.
actually
That's right.
tell them about sex. They don't actually tell them about how to have an orgasm. They don't actually tell you about how to move your body, etc. What they tell you is A, don't do it,
Yeah, you're right.
and B,
You're
this
right.
is what your cycle looks
You're
like.
right.
Right.
And that's very limited.
And that's
Where
very-
do you get the knowledge that, yes, you are supposed to have an orgasm? Yes, there are things that you can do to make
Sure.
yourself have an
So
orgasm.
whose responsibility is it? Is it the parents? Is it the church? Is it the school? Is it, you know, where do you go
Right.
to get understanding?
I
And so I'm not to cut you off, but if somebody don't address it, uninformed people are going to get
Yes.
information from other uninformed people.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's an excellent question, by the way. I believe that as parents, we should be talking openly with our children about that.
Absolutely.
I know in our household, we talk about everything to the point
Yes.
that our kids are like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
TMI.
Yep.
And also the church, because our church is supposed to be the safe haven, if you will.
Right.
Where the place where you're getting God's true, authentic word and you're getting knowledge of what you're supposed to do. If we're silent about it, then I'm leaving my child out there to kind of figure it out.
Exactly.
Or somebody else is going to teach them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
In the right context.
Right.
Because if
Absolutely.
I had a young, my kids are grown now, but if I had when my kids were younger, if they had gone off to church and I started hearing, oh yeah, they're teaching me about orgasms. Boy, with my red flags.
Yeah,
I would be like,
wait.
who is teaching you what? I'm down there
Right.
to say.
No.
But in the right context, like for instance, if it's a youth group and a female is teaching females, even that sometimes can get a little
That's what I'm saying. Rocky.
But in the right context. And,
Yeah.
and I would welcome that generally because I'll just be honest. In my day, you were not talking to your parents about this.
True, in my
You
day
learned
too.
from your older brother and your
I'm
sister.
still not
You
talking
learned
to
from
my
your
Okay.
friends.
I
You
tell
learned
my
from
son
books.
everything. And let me tell you something. This now, okay, this is my vantage point, but I'm also gonna show my son or tell my son strategies for when he gets married. Because you tell people don't have sex until you get married, right? Well, how do they know how to do it? Like to please them. I think that's why a lot of people watch pornography to get strategies and tips on what position works, how can I flip her,
That
which
is
way
true.
can I lift that leg.
That is true. Yes.
Somebody needs to be teaching us, okay,
Dangerous.
what
Ooh, that's dangerous.
it can be, but how is he supposed to know?
That she brings a valid
You
point.
need an auntie in your life, like my children will have you.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
You
saying.
need
And
something.
your
Yeah.
You need somebody to
Parents
teach
need
you.
to step up.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
I should have done a better job, I think. Seriously.
Well, that's
Yeah,
real.
step up.
Because I'm not going to think it's gross, like, oh, my son is having sex tonight. I'm like, yo, it's your wedding night, son.
Yeah.
Do that. Make sure you do everything mommy showed you. I ain't going to show him. But I'm just saying, but he does not, and I'll endorse that. But they do, how are you supposed to know? And there are some books. There's a book that I'm reading now called Sheet Music. And it shows you the anatomy, the male anatomy, the female's anatomy. It shows you kind of a little bit more. I wish I would have read it maybe when I first got married, but not that I came in a virgin.
Right.
Yeah.
Psych mama, I was a virgin when I got married. Clip deflowered me.
Well, I'm a visual learner, so Mr. Pierce is gonna have to just show me.
Yeah.
And also, let's go a little further. I've heard that we shouldn't have toys in the bedroom
Well,
as a married couple. I believe whatever works. That's just my thought process. If you are both enjoying the whatever
both
you
is the
bring,
key.
but it has to be an agreement, right?
is the key.
It definitely has to be an agreement.
Both is
And
the key.
some people have shied away from them, like, toys. Well, he has all the toys he needs. Why you need to bring something extra? Because it's fun.
First of all,
Something different.
That's your
nobody's
business.
That's what I'm saying. It's
That's
not
your business.
but there's some really interesting toys out there nowadays, and devices and stuff, and
It's
I might know
fun.
a little bit about it.
That's one that might be like,
But it's a lot of stuff out there that just don't seem safe. But again, it's your business. Whatever works for you, works for you.
Yeah, I like what you said before about both people like it.
both people.
Both people are comfortable with it.
Right.
Well, you're in
Because
agreement.
the other thing to remember too is that there are a lot of people who have sexual dysfunctions. There are people who are getting
That's
who have
true.
some really
That's true.
strong
That's true.
emotional issues,
Sure.
some trauma
That's
in their
good.
life. There are people who are frigid
Yep.
for multiple reasons.
Yep.
There are men who do not please their husband. Please their wife.
Oh,
Well, in some
That's a
cases,
good-
you know what I mean? Because sometimes people make it seem like men want sex and women don't.
right.
Right.
And I know marriages where it's the man who's not,
The aggressive. Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people who are hurting in a lot of different ways. And so some things like toys would be shocking to them or send them off into a different zone.
Right.
Some things, they just need more coaching, just what
Sure.
we kind of talked about before.
Right.
And they also need to understand that it's not just all physical.
Right.
Sex
That's right.
is mental
Yes.
as much as it is physical.
Yes.
And that's why God wanted it in that covenant, in that safe covenant zone.
Right.
It's safe. But if you're with someone who you are committed to, can you enjoy? The Bible says that they were naked and unashamed. And that's a part
Yeah,
of
but they was also eating fruit and vegetables because they would not have had these rolls that's up under this thing. But that's a whole nother conversation. So, but you know what? The church might be a little hesitant on talking about sex. There are some communities of people that are all about it. And homosexual relationships. It seems like everywhere that you look, that you see some rainbow somewhere or someone talking about the fact that they're, gay pride and they're proud of themselves. Why are they so much out there saying all the things about sex and kind of defining themselves that way? And the church is so quiet on it. I know this is just not going to be popular,
Right.
but I really think there are some things that we can take from the LGBT community. I know, don't stone me, church, don't stone me.
No, I know where she's going.
They are so, and they is a general statement, but for the most part, there are such support groups. There are, if you look in any school setting, you will find a club that supports them, and you're never going to find anybody that judges them because of who they are. It doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, you're purple. They're a little more embracing, and I just think as the body of Christ, we could do a better job of embracing. Am I ever going to agree with the fact that a woman should be with a woman or a man should be with a man? No, that's my own thing, and nobody can force me to feel that way, just like I can't force anybody else to feel the way that they do.
I think what you're saying is like they're very unapologetic
Yes.
or unashamed about a choice.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the body of Christ does not take that stand all the time.
Yes.
Right? It's that constant compromise because we don't want to offense, but we know what offense does, right?
Right.
It builds fences. And that judgment thing, so even, in some churches, you hear this quite often, that church hurt. That
Yeah,
just
that thing is
lingers,
real.
lingers for a million different things. That judgment is real. And we're all flawed, but
Yes.
sometimes the church is really flawed in that area, right? I remember having a colleague who, he was a homosexual, and he was actually a supervisor, and we were friends, and another Christian colleague was very judgmental and condemned him, and I always said to that colleague, when, should he have an encounter with the Lord and want to come to Christ, who do you think he's going to go to? Me or you? right?
Yeah.
He's going to come to me because I loved him from the beginning. I don't love your choice.
Exactly.
It's like hating the sin and not the sin.
Exactly.
That's exactly it.
Exactly.
Sometimes we make it seem, especially as church people are approaching homosexuals, we make it seem like that's their whole identity.
Yes.
You are a homosexual,
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
You are. And it's
Right.
like, no, this
Right.
is a person.
Right.
Absolutely.
And who you sleep with is not the entire identity
That's
that
right.
you have.
Yes.
And so when we approach it like that's the number one sin, I can't talk to you. It's going to rub off on me. I mean,
Right.
I mean, seriously, that's how
Right.
some people act.
Right.
Like, we
But
can't
again,
even be in
it's like,
proximity.
let me put a flashlight on your sin
Uh-huh.
so you don't have to look at mine. Right?
Well, I just think there's some other sins sitting on the side, like, yo, can I get a turn? Like, lie. Like, I'm lie. Can I get a turn to be up on deck? Like, why sex get all the buzz? You know what I mean? I'm a robber. Yo, I'm stealing people. Yo, I'm stealing from you. I don't get a turn.
Yeah.
Like, I cuss. Can I get a turn?
Yeah,
Shoot.
That is so
I'm advocating for other sins today. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Can I get a turn? But sex, it does, and I think sex defines us a lot. It gets so much buzz on TV and movies, and it is. I think what you said was a great point.
But the thing is also is that it gets a negative.
Yes.
It's a negative
Yes.
in a sense because you have all these hyper orgasms and hyper things that just are not real.
Right.
You
Right.
have what we talked about before with porn and everything else with human trafficking. But there's such a good. Did you know there were benefits? I mean, actual physical benefits.
Yeah.
Tell me, honey.
Oh, I was reading this list and it kind of.
She put glasses on. Let me get ready. Well, since you asked.
Let me
All right,
tell
I'm
you.
ready.
Okay, just like these are like the top 10. It will help your immune system because it's releasing antibodies.
Okay.
It helps bladder control, especially with women because
Ooh, I
of the
need
muscles
that.
in your pelvic floor. That's a good one. It lowers your blood pressure. Now we are talking exercise, right? This is exercise.
That is true. That's true.
Depending on how you do it, they say a half an hour is 150 calories.
Half an hour.
Now that's like
So if I go 300
cherry is 100
calories, that's
calories,
only an hour to an hour.
maybe like the lion.
Give me that lion,
I
right?
can have that piece of pie and just do an hour.
Come here, Simba.
What you remember this?
It wards off heart disease and wards off osteoporosis. It balances your estrogen and your testosterone. It helps you with it reduces pain. You get better sleep.
Yes, to the sleep.
Amen. It reduces stress and depression. Hello. It increases your sense of smell. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it can increase your sense of smell and also increases your analytical thinking.
What? That's why you so smart.
Email me that.
You know me on this, right?
That's a good.
Thank you. So anyway, I was saying before, God created this.
Right.
Yeah.
God created our bodies.
Right.
God gave us a framework to do this in. And it can be so good.
And he gave us the equipment to do it. Like, he's so strategic in everything that he does, honestly. And it's not, be fruitful and multiply. We know that's the scripture. I'm past the fruit stage. I'm passing my basket over to other people now. But, you know what I mean? I still want to,
So I think, it's a gift, right? We agree on that. It's
Yes.
a gift. But
Yes.
like all gifts and like all things, when it's abused,
Yeah.
when it's
Yes.
out of order, when it's not,
I agree.
executed in the way it was
Totally agree.
originally designed for, is where we get in trouble.
But then we also have the power and the authority to fix that. Because the truth of the matter is, if you're silent of a thing, then anything else that's chaotic, you're given permission to continue. So I believe, and one of the reasons why we use the church, because the church can be actually was designed to be a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
On earth.
Right.
But to your point, we have kind of minimized our authority, and you have other communities like LGBT, 2Q, they've added so
You
many.
just want to add letters?
We know what you mean.
The bottom line is they believe, and therefore they've given birth
Right.
to what they believe in.
Yeah.
And they stand by it.
Stand by it.
Like, stand by it. And to the point where it's like the world has said, fall back and say, well, it is what it is.
Right.
As we continue to be in the closet.
Exactly. It's like, you're going to accept us one way or another. We're going to be to every show that you watch. I don't know any shows nowadays, well, there are very few that you don't. And while we're talking about it, I think it's also important for young people to understand that the way that God ordained sex to be, he did it for protection.
Sure.
Because you protect yourself from a lot of things. If you just imagine if it's just you and your mate who are virgins coming together,
Right.
you don't run the risk of STDs, STI. You don't run the risk of premarital pregnancies where you're not certain if this person's going to stay. If it's orchestrated and done the way that God had it ordained for us to be, really doing it the way that He has for us to do it protects you. I mean, you don't have to worry about all that.
We didn't even get into the soul ties, but
Ooh,
you know,
child.
you can be there for a little bit. But you know, in the end, you know, Serge, I love what you said. You know, we have the authority, right? If there's a problem, we can stop and address it. And I just charge, you know, men and women of faith, address it. Have courageous conversations with your spouses. Have courageous conversations with your church leaders. Get therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy. You know, it's a gift, and enjoy it as a gift.
And take the opportunity, because we're talking about spirit, soul, and body.
Yes.
To think about sex as the whole thing. To think about that intimacy connection. Because that intimacy, when you have a committed person and you're committed, and you have that intimacy, that means we are free to really be with each other.
Sure.
You are accepting me fully. I can be my authentic self with you, which means that we can really have fun in the best sense of it all. I mean, that is a missing component. I think whether you're married, whether you're Christian or whether you're married, or whether you're Christian or not, people forget that that intimacy and that bond is really key.
Well, that I believe that's the purpose, which with the unity, the bonding, the two shall become one.
One
you know, it's part of what God wanted us to do. But this was good stuff, girls. So this was our Vantage Point. We want to hear what you have to say. So please find us on Facebook. We are the Ladies of Vantage Point. Post your questions, ask us. Let's continue the dialogue and hashtag us at the Ladies of Vantage Point.
This was our Vantage Point. What's yours?
What's your vantage point